Okay, so we should be recording. So before we get started, we're happy to have Ricardo Ibarra here this evening as our doing Spanish interpretation. So for those of you that would like to listen to this session in Spanish, he will be here, and I'd like to invite Ricardo to give that instruction, introduce himself and give that instruction in Spanish.
Hello, everyone. Good night. My name is Ricardo Ibarra from WhatsApp. Buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Ricardo Ibarra de WhatsApp y estaré interpretando para ustedes en español. Para escuchar la traducción simultánea, la interpretación, van a ir al fondo de la pantalla de Zoom y cuando aparezca un icono de globo van a darle un clic ahí y van a elegir su idioma preferido, que es el español, y ahí estaré interpretando para ustedes en vivo del inglés al español. Tengo un poco de tos el día de hoy, pero haré mi mejor labor posible. Gracias y buenas noches.
Gracias. And there we go. Starting interpretation now. So that is now active. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I am Samantha Kimple. I am the program officer for Creative Sonoma. So my job at Creative Sonoma is to manage our professional development and grant programs. In recent years, we've been combining them. So you'll see our grant programs, such as this one, are often about a cohort coming together, getting some grant money, but also getting some professional development it's a long day, professional development or training as a cohort or to learn from one another. Creative Sonoma is a division of the Sonoma County Economic Development Board. So we're a county agency in the government, local government. About myself, I have a master's degree in arts administration. I work for nonprofits from social services, but mainly arts. Background as a theatrical stage manager, costumer, and museum curator. So I have the visual arts and performing arts going on. And then for a visual ID for those that may be listening in, I am a fair, freckled skinned female, medium length, straight, dark brown hair, wearing purple glasses and a nubby cream colored sweater. With that, I'd like to turn you over to Nico Kimson, who's our partner in crime and collaborator for this program for the last year. This is the second year he's working with us, and we're thrilled to have him. Nico.
Hi, friends. My name is Nico Kimson, he, him. I'm a queer Latinx performer, producer, Dan Levy impersonator, and an arts and equity consultant with Kimson Creative. I love chubby dogs, a fierce musical, and I'm a proud partner with Creative Sonoma on our Arts and Cultural Equity Fellowship program. For those listening in, I am a tan-skinned male with black short hair, big square glasses, wearing a black shirt and neon lightning bolts on it because that's what I need today on a Tuesday at 7 p.m. Why we are here. We are here to provide an informational, engaging workshop to walk you all through our Arts and Cultural Equity Grant application and answer any questions that you have. Mi Zoom room as su Zoom room. So this is our one time together for you to ask questions so that you feel confident in submitting to this grant application. So welcome. This is a chill environment. Take yourself off mute, raise your hand, put it in the chat. We are here for you to support you as you need in this process. So hit us up. But before we begin, I'll pass it to Sam for our land acknowledgement.
Coming to you from the County of Sonoma government, we recognize that we're on ancestral lands of the Coast Miwok, Pomo, and Wapo, who are the original caretakers of this area. We respectfully acknowledge the indigenous peoples who have been stewarding and maintaining this relationship on this land as knowledge keepers for millennia and going and through now. And I'd like to, Nico, jump on that.
And the reason really why we do that, right, is that we are a continuation of arts and culture workers that have been on this land for a very long time. And so the work that we hope to do with this grant program and in this meeting today is really uplift them and their work and know that we are a continuation of that process. So let's get into this grant application.
Thank you, Nico. So the way that this is going to work for the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to run through the actual guidelines that are in the application packet. So we will go through each section to tell you about it and let you have the opportunity for clarification if you need further clarification. Any questions you have, what does that mean? We're always open to hearing if something isn't clear or doesn't make sense to you, please let us know. And then the next 20 minutes, we will go through the actual application. So I'll show you where to find it on the website, click into the actual submittable application. We'll go through it question by question so that if you have any questions at all, you can ask about anything that comes to mind. Just let us know, as Nico was mentioning. And then we'll leave the last few minutes for additional questions. And then, like I said, we'll stop the recording. If you have something that you feel like you don't want recorded, we will give you a few minutes to do that. So that said, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, we should be on a screen that says our grants. And this is the website. This is the webpage for Creative Sonoma. We're the designated local arts agency for the county of Sonoma by the state of California. So we want you to know about our grant making. It's a large part of what we do for the county. And so any active grant programs, so things that could happen again or have recently happened, live in this space, followed by things that we no longer do. But if you want to hear who got a grant from a former program, you can always dig into that a little deeper. And so you'll come here to find that this is the application we're talking about tonight, the Arts and Cultural Equity Fellowship Grants, which we call ACE for short. The deadline is March 6, 2023. And so you'll see that that's open, and we go into the actual webpage. I'm going to speed through this pretty much because basically what's on the webpage is a condensation of what's in the actual guideline application packet. So I don't want to spend too much time here unless you have a lot of questions. So here we see what the components of the program, and Nico and I are going to go through this a little more detail, but I just wanted to show you how to navigate this page. If you want to share flyers, you can click to them here on this page with friends, other people that you want to know about this program or encourage to apply. This is our links here for this workshop, as well as open office hours, which we'll tell you about in a bit. But when we get to them on the application, all of the important dates for the programs. Then these are each drop down. So if you click into it, you'll find out more by clicking on each of these. Who's encouraged to apply? Once again, we're going to go through all of these. And then application packet and how to apply is where you find the actual application packet. And this is also where you can click to go into the actual submittable application. It's a platform we use. It's used nationally, I believe internationally at this point. So that's where you can find out who were the grantees from last year and the ways to contact us. So before the next part, I'll show you how to click through, but I want to switch over to our actual application packet, which you should see now, if that looks good to folks, which is a repeat of a lot of this information. So we want to get into the fellowships and the goals. So this fellowship came about as Creative Sonoma is about 8 years old now. As a division of government, we started grant making in 2015. And as we coincide, we've been through natural disasters, the COVID epidemic, and then a really rising and coming to the forefront of racial and social justice movements. There's been a much more forward motion as far as making equity commitments and various dedication from the Economic Development Board and the county for racial equity and social justice. And so as we look at our grant making, we have been continually over the years saying, how can we get a more diverse group of people applying for grants? We can't give grants if they're not applying. And so we want to make sure that we are reaching folks who are working within by, for, and support of communities of color. And so that can mean a lot of different things, and we can talk about that a little bit as far as who's eligible to apply and why. But this is what this program was a result of inspiration from other programs that are done nationally and regionally. And so we kind of got down into the nitty gritty and hired Nico and thought about how this program could further our goals of being much more inclusive in grant making and promoting and supporting and advancing the creative community, and making sure it is illustrative of who lives, works, and plays and creates here. So our goal is to uplift and promote the artistic and economic advancement of emerging and mid-career artists and artists who create work by, for, and within Sonoma County's diverse racial and ethnic communities. And so those components include $5,000, a grant for your creative work or advancement of your leadership development, because this grant includes artists, cultural workers, and also if you're an arts administrator, an organizer that is using the arts to organize around ideas or social justice. So that can be, we've tried to be inclusive as possible, and in any way that you can define that cultural worker, artistic worker. So that grant is how to take your work further wherever you are in your early to mid career. And Nico will talk a little bit more about who that person is and where you are, but we will work with you. We will ask you in the application how you think you're going to spend the money, this $5,000, but it can include professional development. You can go to a conference, classes, internships, submit to exhibits, actually purchase new work, that's equipment. We've had a number of people purchase equipment to advance their metalwork, new computer because they weren't able to live stream with the old or outdated equipment. So those kind of things, it's kind of wide open, except for a few kickouts, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then a $1,250 stipend to offset the time and any costs that you might have to attend cohort meetings, because we will ask you to work in a cohort. So transportation, missed or rescheduled work, childcare. So this is also considered taxable income. And so that is one thing to remember as we go into this as well. The other portion of this is, the other component is the training, professional development, mentorship. So we will work with you to, as a group, once those 6 people are identified, we will work to identify the commonalities among you and have some customized training that the group will benefit from. And so last year, the topics were such things like strategic plans and budgeting, branding and marketing. And then we were able to talk to each person individually and help them maneuver some other resources that they needed that perhaps weren't as topical for the entire group. So it's come together as a cohort to have that experience, to learn from one another too. That's another really exciting part, and what some of the folks from last year have really appreciated. And then the component of community of that, what I've just started to talk about, the ability to network them with our staff and learning, hopefully demystifying applying for grants a bit and approaching and asking the county for resources, as well as other connections we have with other funders and other potential supporters of your work, and audience members and clients and buyers. With that, I'll turn it over to Nico to talk about who, as we're talking about this person.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, so in summary of that last section, right, there's funding, there's professional development, and then there's community. And so we're really looking for people that are coming to the grant application, how those pillars can support you best as an arts and culture worker in Sonoma County. Now, who is encouraged to apply is really going into 3 main points here. A Sonoma County resident, and really it's about artists, artisans, or arts and culture workers that have a lived experience or an understanding or the appreciation of lived experiences of BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color, and their communities. The second pillar, kind of going off of that, is that applicants are emerging or mid-career creatives. Now, if you're anything like myself, I'm always like, am I emerging? Am I mid-career? Am I professional? What am I? And we put a couple of examples here, but really in summary, it's about arts and culture workers that are either in the early stages, the mid stages of a new artistic venture, learning a new craft, wanting to learn a new discipline. So it's regardless of age, you do not have to be a certain age, it's you're starting something new, or you're in the middle and you're continuing to learn something, as opposed to I am a professional and I make my entire earning off of this one thing. So does that kind of make sense when we go from emerging to mid-career? Yeah, and there's a couple of more sentences there that further expand on what that looks like. And the last pillar is really that applicants must be a full-time resident of Sonoma County, and you must be 18 years or older. Non-US state citizens are welcome to apply with work authorization within the United States. And then we currently have a list of who is not eligible to apply. And these are people of staff of the Economic Development Board, Creative Sonoma, and past grantees of the following arts programs that Creative Sonoma has available. So if you haven't done those, you're good to go. We'll move on here to fellowship responsibilities. I'll pass it to you, Sam.
Sure. We ask that you participate in 75% of the scheduled training sessions. And so we will actually, at the outset, once the 6 fellows are chosen, we will work with you to determine whether you want a full day retreat, you want 4 nighttime sessions that take place over 4 months. We'll see what the needs of the group are and determine the best times of day and your preferred format. And so these will be scheduled according to your schedule as much as possible. And so we you know, it is a challenge, but it does work. And so we will work with you to make that happen. We ask that you collaborate with our staff and consultants. So Nico, me, and perhaps a few other people that we draw in, our colleagues, to create a planned outline of your work and how you'll utilize the funding. We just do a one-on-one onboarding meeting and see what you're saying with where you want to take that money. And then participate in a final exit interview or presentation at the completion. And so this year, the exit interview is in the form of a survey with some kind of a final report questions. And then our fellows are currently deciding what kind of presentation they would like. So that is also something we develop together. So I just wanted to let you know about that. And then we, if we have any provided budget templates, that is kind of part of the exit survey. Report how you use the funds. We don't ask for receipts or documentation, but we just need to know what you accomplished with the money. And then we ask that you project document your work. And so we love to see works in progress. We love to hear new press releases about things that you've done. If you work for an organization, a program you've created. So we just, as you're going through spending that money, we love to hear about how it's going and documentation of how it's gone. And Nico.
Yeah, what we're looking for. And I will say, if you're like me, I look at all these artist grants and the labor that's put into what my responsibilities are of like receipts and photos. We try to minimize all of that. So really it's about attending PDs, being in a relationship with us, sending us a photo, keeping us up to date of what you're up to. So yeah, so we found it to be super successful in this last cohort. And so we're excited for the second one as well. What we're looking for, I'm just going to walk you through here a little bit more on what the applications have, how they'll be evaluated. The first is the purpose and quality of the creative work or leadership to date. This is really about your why. right? We're really the purpose, right? Your why you are an arts and culture worker, why you create bodies of work, right? So we're looking for applicants that have a specific intent, right? That an interest in advancing themselves and or BIPOC communities. So really in your application, we're looking for people that have a lot of purpose behind their work and why they're choosing to apply for this grant and how it might advance them and their communities. The second is the strength of the proposed activities and use of funds. So as the mission is to economically and artistically advance yourself, right? So the question is, how will you use these funds to advance your work and yourself artistically and economically? How will this work support your lived experience and or those of our communities of color? Yes. So moving on to the potential impact of the applicant's creative career advancement and or their community is what impact will this have on you personally, your body of work, and or our community? So really the three questions that we're looking at here is the why behind your work, how you might use these funds, these professional development opportunities to advance your work, your community, and then what you imagine the impact being for yourself, your artistic work, or your community. Yes? Anybody have any questions about those?
No?
Great. Good to go. Keep rolling. I like that. How to apply. Sam,
How to
that's you, my
apply, start to
friend.
talk without unmuting. It's perfect. You're obviously in a workshop tonight, so that's step one, attend the workshop. But we also, if someone would like Spanish translation or interpretation service or one-on-one assistance, that may be available. So email us if you need assistance. All the application questions are in this packet that we're reviewing right now. If you want to preview it before you actually get into the application. The document is available for download in either English or Spanish at the webpage. The way that you apply is there's a black submit button on our webpage. You click on that and that takes you into our submittable account. And that account always lists, that's the account we have year round. Anytime we have any open contests or grants, they will appear. If they're an open application, they will appear on that platform. You're in the informational application workshops. We will be posting one of the two workshops from today on the webpage. So if you want to come back to it, we may post both of them. If you want to come back to this particular workshop and review something and then ask us about it, that will be on the webpage. And then the thing that's coming up in a few weeks on Wednesday, February 22nd or February 28th, Tuesday, February 28th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Nico and I will be online through this. If you go to the link on the webpage, we will be sitting in open offices on Zoom. And so you're welcome to just drop in and ask questions. And if you need some additional help, we can create a little room that I can go off and talk to you, or Nico can take you off and talk to you. And so we found that worked really well last year. So we didn't get a cluster of people. People just kind of pop in and out and kept it pretty casual, but ask any questions as you're writing your grant. You have a question about your work samples that you want to submit, we're happy to hear any and all questions about your application. You can save your work as you go. So you have a save draft button on your application. You can keep saving all the way up until 11:59 p.m. on March 6th. And we don't like you to do that, because if there's a problem and it doesn't go through, we aren't able to help you, because it will just be you won't be able to see the application anymore, so you won't be able to submit it. So please submit as early as possible. If you can submit it in advance of that, my staff and we look through the applications, and if there's a technical problem, like you've submitted a video and it won't play before the deadline, and even for a day or two after the deadline, if it looks like it's a technical issue, we will reopen your application for editing and give you a chance to put in a new upload. If anything that looks like a technical issue or something that was inadvertently left out of the application, we can reopen the application in advance of that date. So that's something we can offer to you. And if you have limited access to internet, you can call our office and we can set you up with a station to be able to submit to this grant. Just a quick touch on this element of what the grant funding may not be used for. And this one is always a gray area and people have lots of questions. So if we have performers on this workshop tonight, you're welcome to ask us. We can fund anything that is about producing, developing, designing a performance piece. But we cannot, you can have in mind a music festival. That's an example that came up earlier today, but the funds are not going to be able to go towards any element where you have a live audience or a lot of people involved because of liability issues from the County of Sonoma. We could allow it, but you would be sad because the red tape to acquire that kind of insurance is cost prohibitive from the County of Sonoma, since this is County of Sonoma funding. And so we are just encouraging you about that anything that you have as a performance piece, graphic design, marketing, materials for costume and scenery, printing, scripts, anything that goes into making a performance, getting a new instrument, that is all things that are fine in the grant. If you have questions as a performer before you submit the grant, please reach out to Nico or I and we can talk you through that. You can't re-grant the funds and you can't use this $5,000 to present a fundraising activity. So it's about promoting yourself, advancing yourself in your profession than it is about fundraising. You receive the first $5,000 once we contract with you, and then the final $1,250 when your project is nearing completion or that we've completed most of the professional development, whichever comes first. And so with that, any questions before we jump into, that's kind of the end of the guidelines for the program. And we'll ask for any questions here. And then if there's no questions, I'll close this and we'll jump into the application itself. Seems all good. We'll give you lots of opportunity to ask us again. So going into our application, hold on one second. All right, so you click submit here. And you get to the Creative Sonoma page where, as I mentioned, you have any programs that we currently have open will be appearing here. And you'll see that this is the same grant program, one application in English and then also in Spanish. And so you'll click into the application that you want to begin. Because we have already gone into this, so I'll tell you, there's 1 second. So if you haven't registered for Submittable before, you'll have to create a profile in Submittable, use a profile. And so it's basically just basic information, who you are, where you live, and then you save your address and continue. And so because we already started this application, we demonstrated this application earlier today, it's skipping us right over the eligibility questions. And so it will ask you before you get into the body of this application, it'll say, are you a Sonoma County resident 18 years or older? Yes or no? And are you an emerging or mid-career artist or cultural worker? Yes or no? If you mark no on either one of those, it won't even let you get into this application. It'll say, thanks for applying, contact us for other opportunities. But if you click yes on both of those things, you'll land here at this page. Any questions about this? Great. All right, so the first section is section 1, and it is about, it is about you, and it is your last name, your first name, and middle initial if you use them professionally. It's not required, and this should be the name of your name. We've had the question if you are a band, if you represent a band, this is about personal professional development. And so we want your name. And this is the name that would be the person we'd be contracting with. So make sure it's you, it's not a stage name. If you have a stage name, we will use it in our marketing materials once you're awarded, but for now we need your legal name. Email address, your physical home address, and this must be a Sonoma County address. This is the things that are required by us to make sure that you are being used, funds are being used by a county resident. And then this information is just for us to make sure that you are a county resident. It's not shared externally in any way, your address information ever. Even once the program is released, we might say, the town or city that you reside in, but that is the most that we will share. Sonoma County supervisory district in which you live. And so that would be based on your physical home address, and that's just a drop down. So you check your county supervisor. And if you don't know that, you just have the click your link right here and you enter this address that you've selected as your physical home address. There we go. And this little thing right here, Arts and Equity Fellowship, is dedicated to diversity and representation of districts within Sonoma County. That's about geographic distribution, making sure that we're not awarding all of them just in one city. We're looking for a broad representation across the county, but that is not a deciding factor. That's more like a tiebreaker. So if we're looking at 3 people that are close and we say, wow, we really don't have anybody from North County, that might be a deciding factor, but it's not the factor. So we just wanted to let you know that that is an element that may be in play, but not a deciding element. Your mailing address. And so this is if you have a PO box or somewhere else you need mail, we will not be sending you mail. It's going to be all electronic unless you ask us otherwise, which we can do. Daytime phone number, so your cell or whatever you want. Here we get into yourself as an artist or administrator or whatever you would like to define yourself as. This is the main one. So we want your primary arts and culture discipline. So if you truly can't say, I am a metal worker, so I am in craft or artisan work, you're multidisciplinary. We do have that as an option, but choose the one that best fits. If you choose multiple disciplinary arts or other, this 8A will pop up. And so we give you 5 words. So we just want, administrator, organizer, craft, or artisan work. So you can say designer and filmmaker. So however those disciplines work for you, if they're not just one, you have that option here. And then the final thing in this section is about if you have a website or social media accounts that are dedicated or primarily about your arts and cultural work, you are welcome to provide them. So we just don't want something that's just strictly your personal social media accounts. So if your social media account is primarily about your music, and you feel like that's something you'd like the peer reviewers to see, then you are welcome to provide that. So any questions about items 1 through 9? Now we're here. Great. And we're going to go, I'm going to have Nico run through section 2, but before we get started, he'll talk about how there's different ways to answer each question. But I just wanted to point out, if English is not your primary language or Spanish isn't your primary language, you're welcome to use the Spanish application if that's the language you feel most comfortable. But if another language is your primary language, you're welcome to fill out this application in that language. And we will identify a peer reviewer that is also native or really fluent in that language. So we wanted to give that as an access point for someone that might like to answer in Vietnamese or another language. Nico, over to you.
Yeah. Section 2, the good stuff. Going over to answer question number 10, starting off with that. Our first question here is briefly describe who you are as an arts and culture worker and your why behind your creative work. So this question is really going back to the why you do what you do and who you are as an arts and culture worker, right? And there's going to be three ways in which you can answer this question. You can do a written response if you are a writer, up to 300 words, or if you're a talker like me, you can record yourself on your phone, on your laptop, any device, and you can upload the link directly here. Or the third option is if you want to upload it to YouTube, Vimeo, whatever web platform, and you can upload the link to that video directly there. Does that make sense? So providing you three different options of how you want to express yourself. Moving down to question 11. It's how has your lived experience or understanding of the lived experience of BIPOC communities informed you and your work? Additionally, do you do any work to recognize and or celebrate the arts and cultural lives of BIPOC communities? So if you identify as BIPOC, how has that informed you, your process, your artistic career, your work, right? And do you do anything that recognizes, celebrates BIPOC communities here in Sonoma County? So it's really about how that might inform your work, how that might inform your artistic practice. And then again, three ways in which you can answer that question: written, video upload, or video link. Third question moving here is briefly state what project, educational opportunity, training you hope to use these funds for and what you hope to gain from participating in this program. So here's $6,250. Here's professional development opportunities. Here's community. How might you use those funds to advance yourself artistically and economically? And then going back to the other evaluation ways, what do you hope those anticipated impacts are? How will that advance you, right, in your career? How might that impact our communities, your artistic practice? And then again, three ways in which you can answer that question: written response, video uplink, video link. The last question that we'll ask you here on 13 is what we do is when we get the cohort together, this starts us off on the conversation of what training do you need to level up your skills, your artistic practice? So you can choose up to 3, and then you can choose others and tell us which ones you're interested in as well. But just for an example, last year, there was a lot of all 6 of our cohort members indicated that they wanted branding and or marketing professional development. And so that we curated some professional development trainings on branding and marketing for them. So this is really a moment for you to be a co-creator and help steer us in the direction of your professional development needs. Does anybody have any questions on section 2? Great. We're rolling. Stan, go for it. Uploads.
And now the last fun part, which is, I think, really a really fun way to show who you are and shout about who you are. Samples of your arts and culture work. And so what we ask for is a minimum of 3 and up to 6 total images, video, audio documents, anything that is prior, fairly recent. Try to keep it within the past 3 to 5 years. It should be relevant to what you're proposing in your application. So you're saying, I want to prepare work for an exhibit that I'm going to be doing in 2024 around this theme. You might want to show some work you've done in that theme. Or you are creating an event for your work. Upload some similar examples from prior events that you've produced. We can take anything. It can be any combination. It could be 2 images, 2 videos, and 2 documents. So whatever you feel best tells a story of you and really gets our reviewers to know you better is what we're looking for, and give a sense of your work and your style. Whatever speaks to you about yourself and can help them know you is great. Please do not submit photo collages or multiple images in a file. We would love to each item to be 1 photo, 1 document, The documents can be multiple pages. If you're a teaching artist, we have teaching artists that apply. You have a curriculum plan that's 20 pages long. You know, our reviewers aren't probably going to want to read 20 pages, but you're welcome to upload a document as long as it's one item. A program for an event you've produced. You can submit that, that's one item. If you're applying as an arts or culture administrator or organizer, you're welcome to even upload your resume if that helps folks know about you. Then we have, as I said, you can have any mix of documents, images, audio, video. Then the one that I'd really like to point out here is we do not like uploaded items with non-descriptive titles. So when your computer or your phone spits out a document, a numbered JPEG, please retitle it so that it matches your descriptions, which we ask for and require in number 15. So the descriptions is 1 to 2 sentences for each of your samples that you provide in number 14 above. So we created some samples for the different types of work you might be uploading, from craft and multidisciplinary, traditional, visual, performance or folk, literary, administrative, teaching artists, etc. So you can get a sense of what we're looking for, so that when the reviewers go through your work samples, they have some idea of what you're showing to them. So some basic information about each of the samples that you've put in number 14. Now we do say a minimum of 3, but if you have 6 and you can bring together 6 items, the more the better. But you know, if you feel comfortable with 3 solid examples, that's fine with us too. Any questions about those work samples? I'll be sending out tomorrow, all the folks that registered and attended today's workshops. I'll be sending out a handout that I have about best ways to choose images, as well as some basic grant writing tips. So we'll have that included for you. And so before you hit the submit button, like I said, you can save a draft up until the end, but make sure you hit submit before the deadline. Required is the minimum of 3 samples of your arts and cultural work. And so that's one thing that I'll give you I like to give folks a heads up. We can't in this program set a minimum of files. So if you upload 1 item, it's going to let you hit send for this document. There's no minimum. It will stop you after 6, but it will, if you add 1, it won't say, hey, you've only added 1. So just make sure that you have at least 3 uploaded there. And then there's a little box saying you want to commit to the fellowship trainings and workshops except in cases of emergency. We know life happens. And so we'll make sure that you can commit to that. Terms of use, you have to click on that. And this is just saying that everything that you submitted in this application is true. You're a full-time resident of Sonoma County, and that you agree to contract with the County of Sonoma with the resulting agreement that we come up together after you've been accepted. And then you hit apply. And if I hit this right now, I get all kind of warning messages because all of these asterisks are required fields. So I have not filled out any of them. Let's see, any other questions?
I have a question about the work sample.
Yes.
For literary arts,
Mhm.
is there a suggested page range or limit per sample, or do you recommend like one, like if a chapter is 15 pages, I would be hesitant to add additional because I can't imagine a reviewer would read beyond a few pages.
Right. I would say if you have 3 to 5 pages max, I would say per item,
Okay.
or a poem, or a sample from, we've had graphic novelists in the past give us a little sample of a few pages. We've had short chapters, or as long as you make sure you note in the description that this is the first half of my first chapter of my book.
And when you say that, is it possible, like if a work sample that would support the project that's being proposed, if that work sample is 15 pages, I'm just using 15 as a random number,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
could you potentially say like, this is part 1 of 5
Yes,
and
that's fine.
upload 3 pages? So they
Yep.
would, okay.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
just wanted to make sure that that wouldn't qualify, and then it only counts as one sample.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And I think what we saw was great with the review panel last time is that the work samples are really your chance to infuse your personality, right? Who you are as an artist, showcase who you are, but B, help them see the diversity of the work that you do create or your writing style, right? And I would say, if you are looking to showcase the diversity and provide 6 samples, the quickest way to impact is the question. So how do you economize, right? Like if one poem, one half a page really is this writing style super well, they will ingest that and then they'll move on to the second. But if every work sample is 15 pages, that's
It
where
would
we've
be,
seen, our
yeah.
evaluators get a little like, okay, it's a lot
Yeah,
of
no,
reading.
I understand. I was just thinking
Yeah.
for like a literary, like nonfiction, like a lyric essay or something, like, that would be 15
Totally.
pages. So I would probably break that up. And then my other question is with regards to question number 13. I'm sorry, Sam, it's not on the screen.
Sure.
How do you intend to use the funds for professional development? That is the $5,000, not the second part for participating in the trainings, right? And so that,
Are you
Is
talking
that right?
about how? That's a good question.
Two separate, yeah, Jen.
Yeah,
So
there's
it's
2
the
different
how
things.
will you use the 5,000 on your own? And then 13 is really asking about, we are going to provide 3 to 5 professional developments that you will just participate in. You don't have
Okay.
to pay for, they come as free. And which ones are you interested in? What categories?
Got it. Okay, thank you. And then if you're applying as an individual artist, right, thinking about how to apply those funds toward your project, I understand you're not asking for a budget breakdown or anything, but are you looking for like, I think I had seen classes, training. So what counts with like how to use those funds, and what does it, I know that there are things that you can't use it for, but what are some examples of things that you might
Right.
want to use it for?
Sure. I'll use an example from last year. We had a metal worker who said, I haven't been able to afford a piece of equipment that I'd really like to purchase so that I can do more refined work with different types of metals. And it costs about this much. And I also would love to have more money to be able to use to enter into shows where I can work as a vendor, arts and craft shows, fine art shows, and apply application fees to exhibits and things like that. So that kind of information is really helpful. Otherwise, you can also say, we've had a person who used the money and basically said, I want to use this as, I want to be mentored. So I want to do an internship. I basically, paying myself to be an intern for this organization that I'm really interested in. And I want to pursue that. So it can be a real combination of things. And I think what the evaluators were looking at is it realistic what you're asking for? Is this, when you talk about where you want to be and how you want to be impacted, is that a way that could take you there? It's not a deal breaker. We're just asking about what you would like to do with this $5,000.
Sure. And I appreciate that. I guess I was just thinking like, it's such a range, and
Yeah,
I appreciate the story about the internship. So I'm thinking like, I wonder, because I've seen some grants where you can say like, I would use this to offset the cost of childcare so that I can work on my project, 10 hours a week or something like that. Does that count?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, great. Okay.
And I know there's some residencies that you can apply for writers that you pay them to be a resident. You can do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Okay.
And the thing to know about that too, Jen, is using the metal workers kind of story is that it's justifying the cause, right? So you're going to use the funds, and what he said is that the equipment would allow me to produce more work, to be able to sell my work. So it's the economic advancement, right?
Yeah.
To get into shows so I could sell my work, right? And then artistically, it's a new tool that allows me to create more refined work, right? It's a new thing that I'm learning, is how to work with these tools. And so it was a beautiful kind of example of here's the expense, here's why I want to use it, and then like here's how it will impact me artistically and economically.
Right. Okay. Okay. And I do appreciate that, because I think sometimes it can be weird to put on, like, unless the grant is specifically to offset the cost of childcare, to put that on there and justify the reason. But
And there's already in this grant $1,250 that's baked in for transportation, for childcare. So that's already covered in the grant. So you don't have to necessarily write that in. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. So then it is more for tools and materials then. And memberships, is that something as well that it could be used for? Okay.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Because those can get, and subscriptions, things like
Yep.
that,
Absolutely.
research. Okay. Okay. And then my last question, so you asked about a new project, right? A project that's in development, or how far underway, or is it just in like kind of the idea stage?
Anything goes. If you've developed an exhibit and now you want to use the money to travel to a couple cities to meet with gallery owners or museums. This is a bad example because it doesn't exactly work that way, but any stage. So whether you have a produced work that you need to promote, or you need to develop a web page around it, or you want some marketing ideas for the work that's already produced that you need to take to the next step of, or next level of production, that's valid. The ground up projects, you're at the very beginning, it's any range. So just wherever you are in a project and taking it to the next step or the next phase of a project is what this can pay for.
Okay.
And-
And I'm sorry, Nico.
Oh, I was just going to say, and I think like a refocus on this is for to advance you artistically, economically, professional development wise. So it's less about the project, but if we really want to know, how will the project advance you, right? So it's we're more focused on the professional development of you as an arts and culture worker. And then if you do it through a new project or an old project or a showcase or we don't, we want you to justify that, but it's really about how will this advance you, not necessarily the project. So we're not funding the project itself, but we're funding you to learn through the project or through the training program or through the mentorship.
Okay. And I don't want to take up, I know other people might have questions too. I had one last question, which Sam, you had mentioned, like someone applying as an individual on behalf of a collective. Does the entirety of the collective need to live in Sonoma County, or?
You may, Nico, you explained it so well in the last batch. I would say it's about you and your professional development. So it may impact the collective and it may fund, we had someone that worked with the Zine Fest. And so, but she, as a person that contributed to the Zine Fest, was learning about how different ways that she could learn to promote that and organize it. But it was on behalf of the collective of folks that were producing this event. So it's really about your own professional development within that collective. Or it could be, someone that works in a duo, but we just need the person that is the lead person that's going to be named, Jen Hyde, she's getting professional development as part of this collective, and she's going to share her learnings with the collective. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
Yes, Jose, I thought you had a question at one point. Am I right?
Yeah, in a way, but I was just listening, so I kind of forgot.
That's fine.
No worries.
Well, I'll just tell you a couple more things and then we'll turn off the recording. And if you've remembered, we'll give you another chance. Before Nico shares our info with you, I will be emailing everybody tomorrow with where to find the recordings of these, as well as some handouts. And then also just to keep in mind, we have peer reviewers that are BIPOC identifying people who are working in high levels of their careers in the cultural and arts communities. Last year, they were from all over the United States. They are usually would not know you or the organization that you represent. So make sure that you're not assuming that our reviewers are local and know something about you. You're telling it to a wide audience of professionals. So really think about it that way. And then no hidden agenda in the questions. We're not trying to trick you or stump you. We just want to, hopefully you can answer it and tell us from the heart and from what you know best. So Nico, over to you.
Yeah, I just will say we're really here to, this is the first start. If you're interested in continuing the conversation, we have several ways of our kind of office hours that we'll be holding those 2 days from 11 to 1. And we are not part of the reviewer panel. So we really can talk to you about your application, right? Like, oh, maybe there's a different way you can word this, or there's a different way that I've seen people describe it this way. So you can really, we encourage you to use this as a soundboard as you're writing your grant application. And I will say that please continue to reach out to us, use this as a resource. If those office hours don't work, we want to make sure that we are providing great amounts of us to make sure that you feel confident in your grant application and that this isn't scary, that we're really just here to ask why you do what you do, how you do it, and what that looks like in communities. So however we can be an asset to you as you do this, please let us know. We're dropping our information into the chat here. And Sam's going to take us off recording so that you can ask any other questions that you might be interested in.
All right, I'll stop recording now and